Right guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, last week I got a message from a viewer asking if I wanted to buy his Audi TT. Now, I've always been a big fan of the TT, so obviously I said yes. The Audi TT has been around since 1998, and in the very near future they're discontinuing it, which I think is a big mistake, but anyway. The one I've bought is the 2004, which means it's a Mark 1, but it's a Mark 1 facelift. In late 2003, they facelifted the Mark 1 TT. They made a few subtle differences, the first one being the front grille. Pre-facelift models had a slatted front grille, but the post-facelift ones had this kind of waffle iron style front grille. The one I've bought is a 1.8 litre turbo. Now they offered that in various states of tune, a 150 horsepower version, a 180 or a 225. Now the 225 has got two exhausts, so it isn't one of those. This one's just got a single exhaust, so I assume it's the 180. The other good thing about this one I've bought is that it's a Quattro model, which means it's all-wheel drive. Most of them weren't. And I think the fact that this is a Quattro is quite a big selling point. It's done 123,000 miles, it's had a cam belt done about 2 years ago, and it's supposed to be in quite good condition. I've paid just £1,800 for it, which I thought was quite cheap. Obviously on top of that I've got the cost of delivery. It came from up in Hexham in the northeast. I haven't had my bill through yet. I did get a quote, but I've forgotten. I've got that many cars arriving from all over the place, I've forgotten the actual figure, but I think it was about £220 plus VAT. So this car is going to stand me about £2,000, so what I'm hoping is that I can spend just maybe £200 or £300 on it, giving it a service and MOT, then hopefully it's worth maybe £3,000, maybe £3,500 if it's nice. Fingers crossed. I haven't actually seen it yet, I've only seen photographs via email, but it does look in quite good nick. It looks like it's had the wheels refurbished recently, and they're done in like a graphite grey, which I wouldn't have chosen, but they do suit the car quite well. So I think rather than waste 250 quid getting them done back to silver, I think I'll just keep them in graphite grey. Anyway, right, let's go and see it then, shall we? Well, we're here, and it is indeed red. You know what, those grey wheels, they look alright. Such a classic shape, the TT, especially the Mark 1s. I know they made millions of them, but it will, I promise you, be a future classic. Or be a classic. It is a future classic. Well, the bodywork looks alright. I mean, it looks alright in the pictures, to be fair, but you never know how all those pictures were. It's had a little bit of paint, I can see on the wheel arches, but it is... Wow, it's 19 years old, this car now, isn't it? 19. That looks quite cool, really. Quite looking forward to driving this. Headlamps could do with a buff. I think it could do with a new set of plates. That facelift waffle iron grille is much better though, isn't it? It does look a whole lot better. Right, let me do a quick vehicle history check then, using Car Vertical. May as well turn the old engine off. You really need to do one of these checks before you hand over any cash for a used car or motorbike. If you use my promo code HYPEAT, you'll get 10% off each and every check that you do. This will tell us whether it's ever been stolen, written off, had a mileage rollback, or been involved in an accident. So, all you do is go to carvertical.com, type in the vehicle reg, or the VIN. In this case, it is Sierra Victor 04 MLK. Martin Luther King. I have a dream that one day I'll buy a car that isn't a complete nail. Check vehicle. This is currently checking databases in about 35 different countries. It checks hundreds of millions of cars. So if, for example, it's ever had a service in Slovakia or a bump in Belgium, this will tell us. Right, and the report is ready. I've just noticed it's parked in bay 14, not 13, so I think I might be onto a winner here. Right, so it has never been stolen, never had a mileage rollback, there's no outstanding finance, and there's no recorded damage. According to Car Vertical, the 2004 TT is a sleek and stylish two-door sports car that stands out in a crowded market of luxury vehicles. I quite agree. Right, let's check the mileage then. So, at its last MOT in February this year, it had done 117,000 miles. I think that's when the previous owner bought it. I'm sure he said he bought it in February. So, the mileage is fairly consistent every single year. That's quite good. The current average market price for such a vehicle is £2,600. The highest price is £4,400 and the lowest is £2,000. So I think, if I could do a few little bits to this and make it as nice as possible, I don't see why I shouldn't get £3,000 for that. It is a manual. It was first registered in March 03. A few advisory items here. Let's go down to the most recent. It's had a plate change. It's had 7 owners. To be fair, that's not unusual, is it? For this kind of sporty car, people buy it because they're either going through a midlife crisis or they just fancy something as a weekend toy. Then it sits in the garage for 6 months, they realise they never use it, and then they move it on. So for this kind of car, that number of owners really doesn't bother me too much. Right, it failed its MOT on loads of bits in 21. Okay, right. Well, it passed in February with no advisory items. That's quite good, isn't it? Right, let's go and have a look around it then. Okay then. So, straight away I can tell it's had paint because it is a little bit orange peely. See there? I don't know whether you can see this on the camera. Yeah, it's definitely had paint. Yeah, paint. So it's definitely had a side, I think. I mean, in fairness, that could just be like some sort of, you know, vandal scratch or something. It doesn't necessarily mean it's had a whack. The rear tyre is I don't know how you pronounce that, but it's quite a good brand, I think, isn't it? That's on about 5mm of tread, so that's pretty decent. Look how small the brake discs are. They're tiny. Those have been painted recently. It's not the best job, to be honest, but they look quite tidy from afar. That's quite tidy, isn't it? Quite tidy. The front tyre is a Invovich. Never heard of it. Again, it's on about 5mm of tread though. The brake discs look okay actually. A little bit corroded, but not too bad. Yeah, a fresh set of plates would lift it, I think. The bonnet looks to be original, I think. Original paint, should I say. On this side we've got another Invovich on about 5mm. That's pretty decent. Again, it's had paint here. You can see the runs in it actually. Oh yeah, definitely had paint. This isn't the best paint job in the world actually, this, thinking about it. It's a pity. We've got another Invovich on the back. Never heard of that brand in my life, but it's on about 5mm of tread, so not too bad. Now, I've only got the one key, unfortunately, and oh, there we go. Thought it wasn't working. I've just spotted the guy's address there. Better turn that over before I get fined. Right, so like I say, this was picked up by the collection company that I use, so I haven't seen it in person. Got some red overspray on the sill cover there. It's got the original mats. Always had, or the early Mark 1s, always had nice thick carpet, but like a Porsche. Got the Quattro badge there on the glove box. We've got a footrest there that's come off. That should be over there. And what looks like the clutch pedal cover, or plate, that needs sticking back on. Let's go around to the back then. Looks alright, doesn't it? It should have an Audi badge there above the reg plate, so I might order one of those and stick that back on it. They do look good though, don't they? I think ever since I saw About a Boy, I just always liked the TT. Oh yeah, you can see the red overspray. I think whoever painted this wasn't the best painter, or they're in a rush. Let's have a look in the boot actually. For a little sports car, they've got quite a decent boot. That needs some new struts, I think. They hold it, I suppose. Just got a feeling it's going to fall on me any second. With a good clean, this will be alright, this, I think. It's got a nice black leather interior. So then, what have we got? This display here, the pixels always wear, and I'm expecting this to be no different. Yeah, you see that? You can barely make it out. Now you can send the clocks off to, in the past I've used a company called, they're called Revtronics or something. You send them the pods and then they repair them. So I think it's is it like the ribbons or something? They need to be replaced. Very stylish interior though, this, isn't it? I think it's aged quite well. You've got a cover there for your stereo. Heated seats. Everything feels quite solid as well, you know. So what have we got here? Some silicone. There we go. Don't need to buy one at all, do we? Just need to stick the bugger back. Some pretty shallow cup holders there. What have we got then in the way of service history? Ah, look at this, right. I mean, the back seats are pretty useless, aren't they? They have to be very small. Got some real original wheel centres there, which obviously wouldn't match the grey wheels. Locking wheel nut. It just needs a very good clean. It's just quite grubby. And that's broken. I should have a cover there which covers your fuel door release and your boot button. Nice metal gear lever there. Right, service history then. Just bear with me a second while I try and find the book. Now the guy did say that it had quite good history. He said the cam belt was done a couple of years ago. Obviously somebody spent some money on it. The previous MOTs there. Receipt there in the Durham area. Oh, we've got the radio code, that's good. We've got a bill there for brake discs, wiper blades. Ah, right, there's a bill here for a full service, or the kit for a full service, so someone's done this themselves. That was in 21. Oil, air, fuel, cabin, spark plugs, and oil. Right. We've got a bill here in 2020. Leighton Motors, Tyne and Wear. That was a full service, battery, 2 tyres. And they've ticked off, that's quite good, isn't it? They've ticked off all the advisory items there on the MOT, barring the oil leak. South Shields, that's quite good. Someone's obviously spent some money on it. Right, there's no actual service book. I'll have to chase the owner for that, see if he's got one somewhere. Because he did say the cam belt had been done, but I can't see any record of it. And that's the first thing somebody will ask me, I guarantee it. So look under the bonnet, see if there's a sticker. Ah, the mirror control button there is, the switch is broken. That should have a little toggle on it. I'll have to order one of those. Bonnet struts still work. Okay then, right. Drive belt. That was done in 16. 183,000 kilometres, which is what? 100,000 miles-ish? That was longer than 2 years ago, wasn't it, in fairness? Ah, built in Hungary. I didn't realise that. Oil looks quite clean, doesn't it? Looks quite fresh, that, actually. All looks original, there's no hideous K&N air filter bolted on, like my grandmother's lampshade. There's just red overspray everywhere. Mask it up before you paint. Look at this. It's everywhere. I always love the fuel doors on these. It's so over-engineered. Right, let's fire this bad boy up. Sounds quite throaty. Radio. Bit of Harry Styles there. Cigarette lighter that's been used. So, straight away I think I need to send the pods off for repair, give it a service, give it an MOT, order a mirror switch. And I think we've got a fairly tidy 19-year-old car, haven't we? It's done 122,980. Oh, we've got an airbag light on. That actually spells airbag out to you. I'll have to get my mechanic to try and diagnose that and fix it. Should we take this for a spin then and see how it performs? I'm quite looking forward to driving this. Can't remember the last time I drove a Mark 1 TT. I think I might get a spare key cut for it as well. I hate only having one key. Handbrake's alright. It's all a little bit squeaky, but then it's 19 years old now, isn't it? Gotta cut it some slack, I suppose. Brakes are grinding a little bit. There's a little bit of a knock then when I went over that bump, like it might want some sort of bush replacing. Clutch feels alright though. Oh yes. Oh yeah, there's definitely a knock somewhere. So I need to get that airbag light sorted. That's quite an important one. Get the brakes checked because they're grinding still, although they might wear off. Might just because it's stood for a little bit. Sounds nice though. Got a squeaky clutch pedal. Loads of little rattles everywhere. My window works. That one does as well. Sounds like a seagull. Sounds like I'm at Blackpool. A little bit of grease on the clutch pedal then I think, see if we can lubricate that. I think basically just try and improve every little bit of it to try and get it as nice as possible without going mad. That's the crucial thing. I'm going to have to be quite careful here to not go over budget. This sounds like a really old person thing to say this, but you sort of feel young and cool driving a TT. I think that it needs, so what are we going to spend on this then? The clock repair, that's going to be at least 100 quid, isn't it? Spare key is going to be 100 quid, service will be 100 quid, MOT will be 50 quid, it's a 350 plus a valet, 400 quid, owes me 2 already. This might owe me 2.5 grand prepped. Could well be worth 250 then, couldn't it? 3.5 perhaps? It's a lot of car, isn't it, for that sort of money? Oh yes. Old turbo kicks in nicely. So addictive listening to that turbo noise. Drawing in big gulps of air. Oh, I need to fix the airbag as well, right, yeah. Let's hope that's just a little sensor then at 20 quid. Does my air conditioning work? Let's try this. I assume it has aircon. That was like climate, doesn't it? Not sure. Econ means off, doesn't it? Confusingly. Let's press auto then and see if this works. My headlining is vibrating and it's doing my head in. I think this is the trouble. Whenever I look on Auto Trader at old sort of modern classics, I'll see something like this or from this kind of era and I'll think, oh, I really fancy one of those. And then you drive it and then your headlining rattles and your clutch pedal squeaks and you think, you know what, I'll just stick with a more modern car. I think that's what a lot of people do. You've got to look beyond that, I suppose, or just appreciate it as part of its character. They are great fun to drive though, these. I know it's only a little 1.8, but it provides plenty of power. Something else is squeaking here. Oh, it's that. These seats really hug you as well. Goes into every gear correctly. No crunches or no difficulty there at all. Right, I think then, first things first, I'm going to run this down to my mechanics, get them to check it over for me, and hope and pray that I don't spend too much on it. I'm just hoping that as you watch this, in 2 minutes' time, I'm not wearing a different outfit and say, I've massively overspent. Well, we're back in the TT, and unfortunately, I've got some bad news. This isn't one that I can proceed with. I was a bit disappointed with it when I first saw it. It wasn't really as described. This is the risk you take when you buy something blind, and I buy a lot of cars without seeing them first. So ultimately, it is my fault, I'm aware of that. I get emails and phone calls all the time from people wanting to sell the cars, and I do buy a lot of them. If it's something interesting, or I'd like to meet the seller personally, or I've got time, or it's a nice location, then I do try and pick them up myself. But I just don't have the time, so more often than not, I send a company out with a flatbed and they pick it up for me. And that is a bit of a risk. I'm buying something there that I haven't seen. I'm aware of that. But usually though, the seller's description's honest and I don't come a cropper. But that wasn't the case with this TT. So after we last spoke, I took it down to my mechanics and I was expecting it to cost me a few £100 more than it should. A couple of days later, my phone rang and it was my mechanic. She said, "Where have you had this from?" Both sills are rusty, it needs a full exhaust system, it needs various suspension components, the airbag light's on. She said getting hold of the parts is going to be quite tricky and quite costly. So I thought, right, well, I'm into it now already. I may as well just crack on with it. So I said, please just price it up for me, let me know a price, and then if the price is all right, just go ahead with it. This is sometimes the case with the used car business. You just have to fight your way out of some cars. At that point, I was quite annoyed, to be honest. I felt like I'd been had over, and nobody likes that feeling, do they? So I sent the guy a message on Instagram just explaining what was wrong with the car and how I wasn't very happy because the description wasn't honest. And the message I got back was a bit of an eye-opener. He said, it's a 20-year-old car, what do you expect? Yes, it is a 20-year-old car, you're right, but there are 20-year-old cars, and then there's this. I just wanted an honest description of it because I was buying it blind, and that isn't what I got. Had he said to me it's had a load of paint and most of it isn't very good, there's only one key, the air conditioning doesn't work, the airbag light's on, it needs an exhaust system, it needs both sills, needs various suspension things doing, then I probably would have shied away from it. Well, not probably, I'd have definitely shied away from it, but he didn't. And I just think it's a bit of a dirty trick, that, isn't it? You might be sat at home now sniggering, thinking, is this a car dealer now moaning that he's been ripped off? Well, instead of being bitter and cynical, put yourself in my shoes, see how you'd like it. It isn't right, is it? It isn't fair. And that really is the unfortunate case of double standards in this industry. It's fine for a private individual to rip off a car dealer, but it can't be the other way around. And neither should it, by the way, so I'm not saying that it should for 1 second. But if it were the other way around, the customer's got rights. They could reject this. They'd be on Yelp leaving me a 1-star review. They'd be on Google Business with their cap locks on, typing away furiously. This man's a crook, this man's ripped me off. And yet I'm supposed to just take it on the chin. That isn't fair, is it really? Now, at the risk of sounding naive, maybe, perhaps, the seller didn't know about its issues, but I suspect they did. You know, when a car dealer sells a car, some of the cars on my forecourt I've only driven 5 miles. I don't know them inside and out. But when it's your own personal car, you know them well enough, don't you? You know that there's a knock or a squeak, you know what works and what doesn't. So as much as I like to try and see the good in people, I do think he was fully aware of this. What's funny, after my transport company went up there to collect it, I got an Instagram message from the guy to say, oh, thanks very much, it was great doing business with you. By the way, I'm also looking for a cheap Porsche Boxster up to about £5,000. Can you let me know if you get one? So I thought, right, okay, yeah, if I get one, I'll let you know. Now, can you imagine if I found a Porsche Boxster in this condition and then shipped it up to him blind? He wouldn't be very happy, would he? Worse still, can you imagine when he complained and I said, well, it's a 20-year-old car, what do you expect? Just wouldn't wash, would it? And yet I'm supposed to take it on the chin. It's not fair. Anyway, ultimately it's my fault for being too trusting and buying things blind. You live and learn, don't you? You live and learn. So what I'm going to have to do now is take a big fat loss on this car. It owes me, I paid £1,800 for it, plus the transport was the best part of 300 quid, so £2,100. What's it worth, really? I'm going to try and get somewhere between maybe 12 and 1,500 for it. At this point, it's a case of damage limitation, isn't it? Right, then I'm going to try and offload this now, and I shall be very thorough with its faults, obviously, because I can't be anything else. And yeah, thank you once again for watching. Thank you for listening to this moany rant. And actually, let me know your thoughts below. Let me know whether you think this is fair or not, because legally, I don't have a leg to stand on. Let me know what you think in the comments below. So I shall see you next time, where hopefully I've bought a car and perhaps sold it for a profit. Who knows? Right, cheers guys. Thanks for watching.